These are 6 reasons your everyday car owner's vehicle won't hit 200,000 miles, even though modern vehicles are supposedly built to last that long. Back in 2012, automotive experts declared that the typical car could easily reach 200,000 miles thanks to better manufacturing and improved materials. Yet here we are in 2024, and the average driver's vehicle gets junked at just 156,470 miles. That's a whopping 43,000 miles short of that benchmark. So, what's going wrong? Why are we failing to reach a milestone that should be achievable with today's technology? The answer isn't what most people think. It's not that cars are poorly built. In fact, they're more sophisticated than ever. The problem is that this sophistication has created new failure points that didn't exist when your grandfather's 1970s Buick was chugging along. Let me walk you through the 6 biggest culprits that are killing your car before it reaches the promised land of 200,000 miles. The CVT transmission is first up, and it's basically a ticking time bomb. If you've bought a car in the last decade, there's a good chance you're driving one of these. Unlike traditional automatic transmissions with distinct gears, CVTs use a belt and pulley system to provide infinite gear ratios. Sounds brilliant, right? Smoother acceleration, better fuel economy. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turns out. While Honda and Toyota have managed to build relatively reliable CVTs, other manufacturers haven't been so lucky. Nissan's Jacko CVT transmissions became infamous for failing around 80,000 to 100,000 miles. When they go, you're looking at replacement costs that can hit $8,000 for some models. That's enough to total a vehicle that's only halfway to its intended lifespan. CVTs are incredibly sensitive to heat and contamination. If you're the type who tows trailers, hauls heavy loads, or even just drives aggressively, you're essentially cooking your transmission from the inside. Regular fluid changes can help, but many drivers don't even know their CVT needs special maintenance until it's too late. Here's where things get really insidious. Carbon buildup is silently killing engines across America. Modern direct injection engines are marvels of engineering that spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber for better power and efficiency. But there's a dark side to this technology that became widespread around 2008. In older port fuel injection engines, gasoline would wash over the intake valves as it entered the engine, naturally cleaning off any carbon deposits. Direct injection skips this step entirely. Without that fuel spray hitting the valves, carbon builds up relentlessly. Chuck Lynch from the Automotive Engine Rebuilders Association puts it bluntly. The tough thing is that there is no long-term fix. This isn't a problem that develops after 150,000 miles. It starts happening almost immediately. Mechanics recommend walnut blasting the intake valves every 25,000 to 50,000 miles to remove carbon buildup. The process involves removing the intake manifold and literally sandblasting the valves with crushed walnut shells. Cost? About $1,000 each time. Think about that math for a moment. If you're walnut blasting every 40,000 miles on your way to 200,000, you're looking at 4 additional $1,000 maintenance items that didn't exist on older cars. That's $4,000 in carbon cleaning alone. Enough to make many owners walk away from an otherwise good vehicle. Turbocharged engines have become the default choice for automakers trying to squeeze more power and efficiency out of smaller displacement engines. The concept is sound. Use exhaust gases to spin a turbine that forces more air into the engine. But here's the reality. Turbocharged engines are inherently less reliable than naturally aspirated ones. It's not hard to understand why. You're taking an engine and subjecting it to higher heat, higher pressure, and adding more moving parts that can fail. The turbocharger itself operates at temperatures that can exceed 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, while spinning at over 100,000 RPM. That's a recipe for eventual failure. Ford's EcoBoost and VW's TSI engines exemplify this challenge. Most turbochargers will last well beyond 100,000 miles if properly maintained, but the key phrase is properly maintained. Turbo engines require premium oil, more frequent oil changes, and proper cool-down procedures after hard driving. Skip any of this, and you could be looking at a $3,000 to $5,000 turbocharger replacement that makes your car economically totaled. And it's not just turbos that fail. High-mileage engines face additional threats like timing chain stretch or timing belt failures, which can destroy an entire engine if they snap at the wrong moment. Remember when car radios were simple AM/FM units with a cassette deck? Those days are long gone. Modern vehicles come loaded with massive touchscreens that control everything from climate to navigation to basic vehicle functions. When these screens fail, and they will fail, you're in for a shock. I know a mechanic who recently had to replace the central OLED display in a $40,000 hybrid. The cost? A jaw-dropping $15,000. That's not a typo. Even more modest infotainment screen replacements typically run between $1,500 and $3,000, and that's just for the parts. These screens fail because they're not engineered for the harsh automotive environment. They're subjected to extreme temperatures, constant vibration, UV exposure, and humidity changes. The optical adhesive between the LCD and digitizer breaks down, leading to delamination and ghost touches. Unlike your smartphone, you can't just buy a replacement screen on Amazon. These are proprietary systems tied into the vehicle's entire electrical architecture. The cruel irony is that a failed infotainment screen can make an otherwise perfectly functional car feel broken and dated. Many owners choose to trade in rather than pay thousands to fix what amounts to a fancy radio. This brings us to the overarching issue. Repair costs have skyrocketed beyond belief. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the cost to repair and maintain a vehicle has risen 43.6% from January 2019 to January 2025. The average repair bill now hits $838 nationally, but major engine or transmission work can easily exceed $5,000. Here's where the economics get brutal. An older sedan with 150,000 miles might be worth $3,000 in a private sale, but if it needs $3,500 in engine work, the math simply doesn't add up. Factor in modern threats like catalytic converter theft, where replacement costs can hit $2,500, and you've got another economic totaling scenario. This is why 27% of vehicles involved in accidents are now being totaled by insurance companies, up from 19% in 2018. It's often cheaper to write off a car than fix it. Labor costs are a huge part of this equation. Modern vehicles require specialized diagnostic equipment and training to repair. The days of the neighborhood mechanic fixing everything with basic tools are over. Today's technicians need expensive scan tools and manufacturer-specific software just to diagnose problems, and that complexity gets passed on to you. Finally, let's talk about what happens when manufacturers get it spectacularly wrong. The Hyundai and Kia Theta 2 engine debacle is a perfect case study in how manufacturing defects can doom vehicles well before 200,000 miles. According to the Center for Auto Safety, 2.9 million Hyundai and Kia vehicles are at risk for spontaneous engine fires or premature engine failure. The problem traces back to manufacturing issues at Hyundai's Alabama manufacturing plant, where metal debris from machining operations contaminated the engines during assembly. The result? Engines that would seize up without warning due to connecting rod-bearing failure, sometimes catching fire in the process. Since 2015, there have been 31 fire and engine-related recalls from these two brands, covering over 8.4 million vehicles. A federal judge approved a $1.3 billion settlement in 2021, and another $3.1 billion settlement followed in 2024. The government was so frustrated with the company's slow response that they paid out the first-ever NHTSA Whistleblower Award, more than $24 million, to someone who reported the delayed recalls. When your engine can literally catch fire, reaching 200,000 miles becomes irrelevant. Here's the truth. Modern cars are capable of lasting 200,000 miles, but the path to get there is more expensive and complicated than ever before. The average vehicle gets junked at 156,470 miles, not because it's worn out, but because the cost of keeping it running becomes economically irrational. CVT transmissions, carbon buildup, turbocharger failures, infotainment system breakdowns, skyrocketing repair costs, and occasional manufacturing disasters create a gauntlet of expensive hurdles between you and that 200,000-mile goal. Each one represents a potential economic totaling point, where walking away makes more sense than writing another check. The irony is thick. We have better metallurgy, tighter tolerances, and superior corrosion protection than ever before. Yet we've also created vehicles so complex and expensive to repair that they often don't survive long enough to take advantage of these improvements. Your car might be capable of 200,000 miles, but whether it's economically viable to get there is an entirely different question.